Trying to get the Bluetooth in my ear.
Recording in progress.
Hi, we're on. Welcome all to the Fairmined 100 Challenge closing webinar. I'm Laura Galvez, Business Development Officer for the Alliance for Responsible Mining. This is a very special space because we will be sharing the outcomes of the challenge, the first ever of its kind, for the members of the Fairmined initiative. We're happy to see so many familiar faces and new faces and also brands joining us. And we're beyond excited to have the judges here sharing their take on this milestone. Here with us, Annabelle Davidson, editor of Vanity Fair on Jewelry, Elle Hill, growth expert and founder and CEO of Hill & Co. Pernille Moberg, co-founder of the Danish jewelry marketplace, The Jewelry Room. Victoria Gomelski, editor-in-chief of JCK Magazine. Celine Dawsonville, founder and director of the Impact Studio Ethiwork, and Michelle Graff, editor-in-chief of The National Jeweler. And finally, we are honored to have here Lisa Koenigsberg, president of Initiatives in Arts and Culture, who will be guiding us through the accomplishments of the challenge and our conversation with the judges. Welcome again, and on to you, Lisa.
Well, thank you everybody for joining. And before we turn to the judges with some questions, we wanted to share numerous accomplishments of the challenge. Fairmined was aiming for 100 collections to be launched within a year. This milestone was surpassed with the launch of 127 collections. A total of 97 brands participated. And among them, 47 brands launched their first Fairmined collection as part of the challenge. So this is exciting news indeed. Today, we will be announcing the winning collections in 8 different categories. The public's favorite, which is chosen by the audience at large, and that will be announced last. And then the selection from our panel of judges amongst the following: 1 solid gold collection made entirely in Fairmined gold, silver collection made using Fairmined silver, gold plated collection using certified Fairmined gold plating, diamond collection made with Fairmined metal and diamonds, colored gemstone collection made with Fairmined metals and colored gemstones, groundbreaking innovation, the collection that differentiates itself from the rest by the use of a unique craft, technology, or concept, and the sustainability story. And that is for recognition of a brand that submitted a collection of 5 pieces, or a brand with multiple collections that used the challenge as a way of creating a compelling story about positive impact. So now I'd like to turn to the judges and ask some questions of you all. So it would be wonderful to see your faces. And the first question is a general one for all of you. Tell us about your selection process and what you were looking for. Who will take on being the first respondent to that question?
I can be first.
Okay,
Or
Elle.
Michelle, you be first.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So, okay. Hi, and thank you guys so much for having me with you today. Lisa, it's so lovely to see you after so long, and all of the ladies that I've been having the luxury of getting to know during this process, thank you. It's really my pleasure, and I've learned so much over the course of the last 6 months. My process was to first look at all the collections. Like, before I understood what were the categories, or which one was gold and which one was, whatever the categories were, I didn't even look at that. First, I went to each and every collection and just went through the entire collection without even reading anything. So somebody else may have gone about this a completely different way. I didn't start with the stories or the purpose or the reason why. I just looked at the collection to see what made my heart jump, to see what made my brain say, I don't understand where that's derived from. This looks like a unique expression of someone's creativity. That's where I began, was just looking at everything. And then
Okay.
with that, in the back of my mind, I started going down the individual categories.
And somebody else perhaps with a different approach. Vicky?
That mine was very similar to Elle. I looked for what jumped out at me visually before I thought about what the sort of context was for the collection, or in fact, even the materials. For a lot of those collections that were gold plated, I didn't really know if they were gold plated until I read the pieces. So I was just looking for things that looked different, or distinct enough to be memorable. So again, just a real kind of concerted effort to go A to Z, or I can't remember if there was a Z in this in terms of the brands that introduced collections, but kind of from the start to the end, opened up each image and just had a look.
I'm kind of the same as Vicky and Al. I think I can, everyone here sees a lot of jewelry. And I think when you do this for a long time, I don't know, like you asked about process, and I was thinking about this because I was like, well, I don't really have a process. Like, you can look at jewelry after you do this so long, and like Al mentioned, your heart leaping, you just know, you're like, oh, that's different. Like, that's interesting. I haven't seen like that. Because, many pieces are beautiful, but there's something that sets apart a collection that says, this is something different. And this is something new. And that's what I'm always looking for. And there's no process, but I just know it when I see it. When something's interesting, different, and jumps out at me as being, something I haven't seen before, or something that's presented in a new way.
Well, I have a question, not having been part of the judging process. Were the objects assigned by category, or is that part of what you all did in the judging process?
No, they were assigned by category. So for each category, you could, when you looked at everything, you could, filter by whichever the category was. But like everyone else, I think, it's always, for me, it's always design first, materials and story second, with all the best intentions of the world, and having, the most ethically sourced materials. If the final object isn't beautiful or memorable or distinctive, there's not much point. We're all in the jewelry game, and jewelry is there to be admired. So like the others, design first.
Now, what I'd like to do is to turn to Annabelle, Michelle, and Vicky as editors of some of the leading publications in the jewelry industry. So you had an opportunity here to look at 97, if you will, brands making use of Fairmined material. And do you think that there is a trend on the part of consumers with regard to emphasizing sustainability? And it's important. Is that an important thing to them? And are there specific values that you'd like to call out that are particularly important to them?
Sadly, and this is very pessimistic, I feel like I bang on and on and on that drum about materials, about being aware of greenwashing in the jewelry industry, which is insidious, about making good choices, about knowing what your choices are. I still think the vast majority of consumers, I'd like to say just don't know, just don't care. And I'm afraid that I think that's the truth across the spectrum.
I don't disagree with Annabelle, but I also think for some consumers, there's a mix. It's like some don't know, some don't care. And then I think for a lot of consumers, like, especially when you're like in the middle market, it comes down to price. And maybe they would like to purchase like this piece that's Fairmined, fair trade, whatever. But if this piece is this much more expensive than this piece, they're just going to go always with the lower price product. I mean, there definitely are consumers who care and who want to look for the best sourced everything. But it's, it's like the same thing when you look at the way people buy groceries or buy anything. Like, there's a lot of people that look at stuff and be like, I would like to shop at this grocery store exclusively and only buy organic, but that's not an option for everybody. So I think that plays into it too. Like, people are very constrained on their budget. They don't always have room to, spend the extra money to say this was Fairmined or this is for trade or this is organic. And I think that's the truth. I think, in the United States, I can only speak to, I think when we go on and on about this and this and jewelry, I think at the end of the day, for the consumer, speaking completely separately for us, price is the main driving factor in why they pick what they pick. And Vicky, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
No, I agree. I think for most people, absolutely price is the factor, especially as we sort of get on and think about a prospect of looming recession, inflation this year more than ever, wartime. I think people are concerned about spending more so than they were even during the pandemic, which is, the great irony of the pandemic. I do think there's a very, very small minority who are very committed to sustainability, and they're the vocal minority. So even though it's by far a tiny, tiny percentage of consumers, they're the ones that are going to go on social media and call out companies or celebrate companies. So it's kind of this weird, there's not as much push or pull from the consumer end. It's more companies, investors, editors, people outside of the consuming public that are pushing for sustainability. And you hope at some point they meet consumer demand, or that consumer demand rises to meet this challenge. I don't think we've seen it yet in Pernille, you might be able to speak to this because your sister Charlotte, I asked her this very question. I just spoke to her about what consumers in Denmark and Scandinavia were seeking in terms of sustainability. And she said so much of it is really, there's not that conversation among consumers as much as you'd think, even in a place as committed to progressive ideals as Denmark, as Scandinavia is. So perhaps you might be able to comment.
True. I mean, I chip into all the arguments about it is definitely design first, then price, and then the story. But I do believe that the younger target group is more aware, and they do ask the questions. So we definitely see, I believe, a growing interest, and it is a requirement. It is starting to become a requirement that there is some kind of sustainable story and sustainable thinking. Fairmined gold is not that known in Scandinavia yet, but obviously I think this is an amazing opportunity to start telling this story. And I think this is also why something like this from Laura and the guys at Fairmined is super important, because we need to push this agenda. In Scandinavia, it's definitely much more recycled gold, but there is a lot of ethical thinking, and there is a lot of choosing things that last rather than the cheap crap, so to say. So we're on the right track.
Well, that sort of leads into the next question, which is, what do you see as the future for using Fairmined gold and silver? And again, this is to the editorial group, and you're uniquely in a position to, if you will, to influence and to communicate, or to make people aware of options. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, my connection is really unstable and I've tried to go to my phone, but if you can hear me, can people hear me?
Yep.
If I have one job, it is to make not just consumers, but also jewelers aware that they have choices. And, in an ideal world, people would know that Fairmined was one of the few very, very responsible choices when it comes to jewelry materials, and this is the most important thing, that you don't have to do an entire collection using Fairmined gold. You don't need to switch your entire supply chain to Fairmined gold. You can do an enormous amount of good by you doing a small number of pieces in Fairmined gold. And it's about where you can have impact. And if it's only in your budget to do a little Fairmined gold collection, great, do it every year, make 3 rings. If you can do a lot more, great. But I think the real thing here is to spread the message that this gold exists, and that there are initiatives like this exist and that people have a choice.
So finally, to the three of you, from your perspectives as editors, what's the importance of being able to associate responsibility with a piece or a brand? And I would maybe say responsible practice or responsible choice with a piece or a brand.
What is the advantage of that?
Yeah, in your view, what's the importance of it? I mean, does that provide leverage or an advantage for the?
Well,
or
I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt, right? Like, I mean, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like at the end of the day, it's kind of design, price, and then social values. It's not that I don't think it hurts. I don't think it, I mean, you're definitely going to reach a certain kind of consumer who is out there and says, I will spend any amount of money to get gold source like this. You would definitely reach that consumer. I don't think it can hurt at all to have that association. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good answer to the question or not.
And Michelle, I agree. It's like, of course, it's not going to hurt to have that association. It was like, you know, when De Beers started doing Forever Mark diamonds, and people were like, no, because that says that all the other diamonds are bad. And actually, no one ever said that. So, first of all, I don't think it can hurt.
Second, and now the whole industry, sorry to interrupt, Annabelle, has gone towards in the same direction with traceability.
100%. And, you know, at the very least, it's a great tactic for a brand, you know, like to tell a little story. So not only does it not hurt, it's an opportunity to get a message out, a new one. You know, it's a good marketing tactic. You know you're doing good by using Fairmined Gold. You're telling an interesting story that not a lot of people know, and I think it's kind of a win-win. And basically, I don't see how there could be there's nothing negative associated with it. It can only do good.
And I think, Annabelle, you made such a great point, like encouraging people, like you don't have to do your entire collection this way, but just a few pieces, like get the word out, make that difference. I'm sorry, Vicky.
No, not at all. I mean, I was thinking at first, you know, at the very high end, these are the kinds of clients who, for them, whatever premium a Fairmined product might charge or come with, it's sort of, you know, it's meaningless to them. They have the money. So I think all things being equal, if they're looking at two pieces of jewelry and one is made out of Fairmined Gold or another very responsible product or material, sure, they would choose that one if all things being equal, style and design and so on. Yes, of course, because those are the kinds of consumers that are concerned about you know, the stories they tell and who they share this with and how they look and kind of the image that goes along with what they're buying. And but I think it's really, I was really surprised and delighted to see that there were collections in gold plate that over to Fairmined. I had no idea that was even an option. And of course, it made me wonder, well, what is the price difference? Because I think so much of this just hasn't been available to consumers in the past. And the fact that these are now in the marketplace and that people have that choice, I think they'll start thinking about it more. I mean, you can't really expect people to sort of ask questions about things they've never heard of, you know, and sort of, or to have these kinds of conversations in their own heads about what they value when they haven't been presented with choice. So I think the more choice there is in the marketplace, the more people will be led to, you know, down certain paths. So it was great to see. I'm very curious how much those retail for.
If I can come at this from a diamond example, this is a really great case study about choice, because I think Fairmined is probably one of the better known offerings and choices to consumers. But Alex Monroe did a brilliant thing called the Diamond Library, where he invited people to come and listen. And he, rather than saying this is the best diamond, he showed about 8 different ways of buying diamonds. So there was antique, there was lab grown, there was like salt and pepper, there was I mean, it was a whole array. And it was so interesting because it wasn't saying this is the best and this is the worst. It was saying these are the choices, and it was about educating the consumer around that. And you know, I hope we get to the point where we can do the same with gold and say, look, there's Fairmined. There are various NGOs across the states looking at really interesting things with working on old tailings from mines and, you know, pulling things out from rivers, etc. And, you know, Fairmined at the moment, it's kind of the best choice, but hopefully there'll be more choices. And it's our job, I think, to educate the consumer around that, and hopefully at the same time educate jewelers as to these options, and hopefully they grow.
So kind of creating a portfolio of responsible options and making people aware of the choices
Right.
that they.
Or letting people decide for themselves which is the most responsible. For, you know, one person's responsible option might be another person's, you know, BS. So I think it's about, you know, giving people the information and letting them decide what to do with it.
Celine, if I may, could you share your thoughts with us about the challenge as a collective action that has ramifications for miners, refiners, and manufacturers?
Yes. So maybe I go back, just saying one thing, because I think it's very important. I think that in food or in clothes, consumers have been educated to know how to buy the product because they know the origin and they know the type of scandals that it can be linked to, and they can ask for what they consider being ethical for themselves. In jewelry, the issue is that the product in itself is considered as being sustainable because you can recycle gold forever on a diamond. This might be one of the toughest things that you can find, but there are few issues, or there are different stories that you can write with your jewels. You can decide to be more in favor of social impact. You can decide to opt out from the mine. And this is stories that are very different, but consumers are not well educated because they don't know that gold comes from mines, that diamonds are coming from the mines, and they don't really understand how it's extracted and what is the impact that you can have. So I think Fairmined is a great initiative, and it's got a huge impact on the value chain. Choosing Fairmined, it's not an easy task for jewelers because it requests to work with less quantity, and it requests to segregate most of the time the way you craft your jewelry so that you don't mix your gold and you just have Fairmined within your product. And I think it's very positive because when we talk about Fairmined, we talk about artisanal mine. So those artisanal mine, if they are not helped, no matter what, they will extract gold. But if they don't have any support, they might do it by polluting a lot in the country where they operate because they might use mercury or cyanide without having any protections. They might not have any inclusiveness in the process that they manage the mine. So for example, with Fairmined, you're going to have a premium that is paid that go back to the community so that they are educated in extracting the gold, but as well, they can develop new activities. So not everyone depend on gold, but for example, women can have access to education. Second thing that is really interesting, it's that in gold, it's very difficult to have traceability. With Fairmined, you know the mine where they're coming from, so you can track and trace the origin. Most of the time we mix many artisanal mine because quantity need to be in consequence to just craft the jewelry, but it's very interesting because it brings traceability in a value chain that didn't have any. And then I think it's amazing, and you already talked about that, it's that it's bring education to the consumer. So the consumer can know that not all the gold are just clean gold. You can have gold that have got various impacts, and they can be more social driven, such as Fairmined, or they can be recycled, but most of the time you don't know the origin of recycled gold. So it raises many questions in the sectors. And I think as well, it's leverage a new creativity because when you take different materials, then it's unleash the potential of the creators, maybe to tell a story in terms of design that are quite different from what they do if they didn't ask themselves questions about the choice of gold. And I think what will be interesting in when we will be able to provide maybe more Fairmined gold, not in the sense that we need to extract more and more, but if the jewelry take this gold, then it gives it a meaning, and then it's unable at the worldwide level to fight against mercury pollutions that are coming from mines that are not helped. And it's very important because mercury has got a dreadful impact on nature. And it's very important. I just don't want to be too long, so I'm just putting a point.
I've got it. It's all right. I've got a follow-on question for you, and that is, and I think the answer to part A is will be obvious, but not so necessarily part B. And that is, would you recommend that brands include Fairmined sourcing in their mix, and why?
It's a questions, and I think that you can have different opinion depending on which creator you are and depending on the value that you want to give to your product. So maybe you can think that if we look at energy, currently there is a lot of discussion about what is the sustainable energy. So it's better to have green energy coming from sources that are renewable. But at the same time, most of the country, they are much more balanced when they've got a different mix of gold that they're using, because to a certain extent, you reflect the reality of what is happening in the nature. There is already 80% of the gold stock that has been already extracted. And apparently there's 20 left gold that are remaining within Earth. Even we can't be sure at 100% for that. So I think it's interesting if you are a small brand, you can do only Fairmined gold because it might be your value to fight for local community and to be more inclusive in the world. If you are a big brand, it's interesting to have a mix of, I would say, recycled gold and gold with a positive impact on community, because you help any issue that you might have in the world on that. But the issue of mixing the gold together for jewelers, it's that if they buy Fairmined gold, they might know from where they're just buying it, and they might want to tell it to their consumer. If they buy Fairmined gold, they will pay it much more than recycled gold. So to a certain extent, they want to be able to make the claim at the client level, because Fairmined label is one of the only labels that talk to the end consumer. And when you look at other gold, most of the time it doesn't come with any certificates. So that's the reason why that most of the brands that use Fairmined use it not smelts with other gold. But at global level, if you take Kering strategy is to have a purchasing of gold that is a mix of Fairmined or impact artisanal gold and recycled gold. And sometimes they blend it, and sometimes they just make specific collections, such as for Pomelato. So what I hope is that there will be more, I'm seeing a tendency within the jewelry sectors to just say, oh, the mine are bad, so I'm stepping out of the mine because I just don't want to have anything to do with them. But at the end of the day, the gold had an history. So it's if you recycle it, it's still a gold that come from Earth. And if you don't look at what is happening in the artisanal sectors, then you let the Earth being depleted and you let community being under dependency. And I think the biggest you are, the more responsibility you've got in regard of artisanal mine.
Thank you. So Elle.
Selena, I was just gonna, Lisa, if I just could just but comment on what Celine was saying, which I think is so interesting, is that, people, and it comes across a lot in lab grown diamonds, is people seem very ready to dismiss the rights of artisanal miners and communities to make money and make a living out of what's right under their feet. And who are we to say, oh, mining's bad now, we're just going to print diamonds in the Northern Hemisphere, in the West, we're going to just print them and you can't mine them anymore. Same with gold, like saying, oh, we're just going to recycle gold. It's patronizing and it's unfair to this whole idea of just labeling mining, whether it's large scale but particularly artisanal, as a bad thing for the environment. You can't just rip the rug out from under people who who 100% rely on what really is God-given to them because it's on the land that they live, which is why I have such a problem with giant companies coming in and sealing off great big swaths of countries for themselves. No names mentioned. But I totally agree with you, Celine.
I would say that I'm quite optimistic in the fact that I'm based in Paris and I work for a major jewelry brands, and I'm seeing that both small iconic brands and bigger brands are moving they're just taking actions. They were not taking any actions, but with the Watch and Jewelry Initiative 2030, with the innovations that you've got and the possibility to track and trace the diamonds, I'm seeing a much more balanced world emerging. But most of the people that work within the jewelry sectors, they don't even know the reality of what we know. And most of the time, we just don't know. So that's the issue. It's very tough nowadays to say I won't have any, for example, Russian diamond in my sourcing because the melee, it's all mixed. It's really hard to say that I'm having diamonds coming from one area in the world because everything is sold in bulk and there is no more origin. So I think that currently there is innovation in technology. There is a duty that we have in terms of social care. We shouldn't be post-colonialism. We've been polluting a lot as well, taking natural resources from countries that are very poor. So we need to do the duty on two fronts, being less polluting, but still giving the right to community to have a living wage on decent working conditions.
Okay, I think you've left this issue at a really interesting point. It could be analogized to something that's coming up in climate called loss and damage. But given our time constraints, I would like, if I may, to turn to Elle. And Elle, as a growth expert, you have successfully worked with brands that use Fairmined metals, and they've overcome the challenges that can result from the premium. What advice would you give to brands that fear this financial challenge?
I don't know if I would say they've overcome the challenge, honestly. I think they are sacrificing the ability to achieve higher margins for their larger moral purpose. Again, I'm only speaking from my own experience, and part of the reason why I'm involved with the Fairmined Challenge is because I hold myself and my team responsible to learn more. We're students of this rapidly changing landscape. And as Celine said, most of the professionals in our industry don't even understand what the issues are with the artisanal miners. But to your question about the brands, I think even on the forefront, even the brands that we have the luxury of working with that have very relatively high visibility, they are still making a financial sacrifice in terms of gross profit margin, gross product margin, and gross profit margin in order to adhere to what they believe is the right thing to do. And I can only speak to my experience and our experience with the brands that we interact with. The reason they exist is to elevate the brand awareness of Fairmined certified ecological gold or Fairmined certified gold, and the challenges in the artisanal community, and the fact that it does not affect only them. It affects everyone. It affects the entire ecosystem, every human on the planet as it goes through water systems and air systems. So I don't have a cheery answer for you. It's not that, hey, we figured it out, we can do Fairmined and we still can make the same type of profit margin as if we just bought bars of gold from anywhere, because we haven't reached that point yet. The retail partners, by and large, need to make certain profit margins, and so the wholesale price of selling that product has to be on par with the product you're competing against, which is gold that is not Fairmined certified, that doesn't have a premium. So it still exists, and really the commitment is we will watch the profit and loss, the cash flow, and the EBITDA to make sure that we are still being responsible and creating businesses that are sustainable, that are committed to a Fairmined gold. That is the key, because if the business itself and the P&L is not going to be sustainable with that smaller margin, which it can be, and yes, we have at least proven that, if the business is not sustainable, then the contribution towards the furthering of the cause goes out the window. So that's where I marry our business management consulting and our commitment to all of the ESG goals that we are passionate about.
Well,
And
part of it is-
just to explain that, it's that when you take Fairmined gold, you've got less quantity. So you need to have a dedicated smelter. So it costs more. And then you need to segregate when you subcontract the fact that you craft pieces of your jewels. And this is an extra cost. So the cost is not only the cost of the raw material, it's the premium that you get so that you don't mix the gold together. So you've got less quantity and you need to have to segregate the line of production.
Well, to go back to you, Elle, part of what you may be involved in is actually putting forward a different kind of value proposition, but nonetheless, emphasizing the sustainability of the company. And you're known for, I'm going to quote a particular phrase of yours, and ask you how you relate this to the challenge and brands that work specifically with Fairmined. And that is, the sustainable way is the real way to be successful at business. So I wonder how you would relate that specifically to the challenge, meaning the Fairmined 100 challenge and brands that work with Fairmined.
Okay, so, and I do believe this, and I'm passionate about this. In 2019, I heard a gentleman say, if sustainability is not initiated into your competitive strategy, you will not have a business in 5 years. That was 2019. So maybe he was being overly inspirational, but I think the core of what he communicated was very true. I do think we all want the awareness and the understanding of the end consumer, who in the end of the day is the god of this marketplace, right? What they're willing to pay for, what they want to seek out. We have fabulous generations that are coming, asking questions, wanting to know where things are from. But I still think there's a big lag in understanding that gold comes from different places and is sourced in different ways. People seem to have copped on to the diamond part, but the metals and the impact on the environment, the global environment, not just the people who do the mining, the impact that it has on everything that the younger generations and some of we older generations are committed to do in terms of reduction of greenhouse gases and CO2 footprints. This is integral to it. So I do believe that the 5-year horizon is longer than the quotation that I heard, but I also understand that, look, we've only got one planet, and unless everybody takes an action in the area where they can, we are not going to reach the goals that we need to reach to protect it. I feel very passionate about that. I know so many other people do. So when we engage with businesses, if it's not a priority for them, they're not a client of ours. It's just that simple. Because to be a sustainable business, you have to look at how you're contributing to the positive extension of our time here on this planet in a healthy way. And that is, a moral compass item for me and my team. But I do believe, as a business management consultant, I would be leading someone down a fictitious path if I said, you know what, you don't really have to worry about this. Even if they don't care, and I know I've said this before and some people don't like it, but even if they don't care, even if they don't have a moral North Star to contribute in some positive way and to understand the power of even their small contribution, they have to acknowledge that there is an ever-growing audience that cares. And if you want to serve up to them a business that they feel proud to align their morals with, the way people are making their purchases based on businesses that are aligned with their morals. Is it female led? Are they adhering to sustainable development goals as set by the UN? If they don't even care, if they understand that the audience will want it, then they've got to figure out a way to serve it, which means they've got to walk the walk in order to say it.
Well said. Now, Pernilla, you bring the perspective of a retailer with a curatorial eye who appreciates varied aspects, varied kinds of value in a piece of jewelry. From your vantage point, do stories that emphasize origin, the use of responsible materials and practices, make a brand more attractive? And if so, will that continue? How will it continue?
Well, I mean, I think I'm tapping into what everyone else has said, and obviously also what Elle just mentioned. It has to be the story, and we are the ones who can start. I mean, if we can start talking about the stories, I also believe that this is, I mean, the small steps that we can make, right? And I do believe, as whether it's the 5 years or a bit more, as you mentioned, the next generation is the Greta Thunbergs, and it's we have to be sustainable. We have to talk sustainable. It has to be a super good story. And for us, as you mentioned, Celine, actually, the whole Fairmined taps perfectly into our passion and our substance, because I have a passion for all the smaller designers. We really want to make a window for all the small, independent, super talented guys out there that don't have thousands of the same piece, but have individual pieces, and we can share that to jewelry lovers of the world, right? So I don't think that I think the big brands are super responsible for going the right direction, but if we can gather many of the smaller ones who can do it as well, I think the story can be as impactful, and the importance of sustainability is as impactful. It is more difficult for one small brand to make an impact, but if we all go together and if we gather it all, I do believe we can have a truly strong voice. So I don't know if that was a proper answer to your question there, Lisa, but it is important to have the story, and we have to make it important.
The William Morris theory of revolution. I'm intrigued with your recently announced collaboration between Fairmined and the Jewelry Room, and I'm wondering if you can tell us about that, please.
Well, it is, as all the other amazing judges here, I mean, we obviously embrace this this challenge or this storytelling in the way that we can do it, and we can do it in terms of sharing stories with our thousands of people visiting our site every day, and sharing, informing about Fairmined. We are learning every day as well. And as much as we can inform and I think you mentioned it, Annabelle, for the end consumer to then make their choices, I think that is important. But obviously we will display all the winners and a bit more as much as we can, and make it able to buy it through us. Another way to make it seen, this amazing challenges and all the talented designers. So doing what we can to take them to the world, and also be able to, for the end consumers to buy it, because I guess that's the main thing at the end. If we're just sitting here in a closed community talking about it, we need to get it out there. And this is the way, and then the profit will go back to the Fairmined community and to the small miners out there. So taking our responsible path, or how to say it, but taking the responsibility that we can with the small steps. And again, I think it's a matter of a lot of small steps. So it will be possible to buy if not all the pieces, I don't think that's logistically possible, but many of the pieces within the next few weeks that will be up on the jewelryroom.com and available for the customers. So I think that's super exciting.
It is indeed. So now I have a final question for each of you. It's the same question to all of you, which is in 10 words or less, we'll make it 14, but keeping it tight. What would you like to see in a second edition of the challenge? And we're really interested in what each one of you has to say. Annabelle, was that?
I would like some big players to get involved. Like, yes, there are some big players involved, but I would like some big players to have the balls, excuse my language, to get out of their comfort zones and do a little collection. And I mean, like Cartier and, you know, Boucheron and some of the big independent jewelers. Like, you know, it's all very well having these amazing sustainability manifestos that we can all dig through online and their ESG intentions, but let's see a little more than that. And, you know, take the risk, do a tiny collection, Cartier or whoever, with something like Fairmined Gold.
Game on. Anyone else? Vicky.
I was thinking Cartier the minute you asked that, Lisa. So Annabelle exactly echoed my thoughts. I thought Cartier, Bulgari, Boucheron. Chopard's already somewhat there with their ethical gold program. It's not, I don't know, I think some of it may be Fairmined, but yeah, I'd love to see a major brands section or category in the next edition of the challenge.
I think I saw another hand before I start. Yes, Elle.
So I don't know how, it's not, the PC isn't the word, but what I think one of the reasons why this really called out to me, the Fairmined 100 Challenge, was because I think we're at the stage in the cycle of consumer awareness that brand awareness is everything. In my humble opinion, you know, idea, information, purchase, receive, recommend, everything goes through this cycle, even movements and organizations, right? And I think Fairmined has done such a stellar and perhaps exemplary job of people understand Fairmined. They've heard Fairmined. They're like, I know what Fairmined coffee is, and oh, so Fairmined gold, this makes sense, right? So we're at this stage that I feel like one of the reasons why I really wanted to be involved was with my tiny platform of people who follow us and my team. I wanted to elevate awareness and have professionals asking the questions because that's who our audience is, right? But I would love to see how I believe to my soles of my feet, if a tree falls in a forest today and no one sees it or hears it, it did not fall. It didn't fall. So communicating what we're doing and raising the awareness of what is happening with Fairmined Gold and the availability and how it impacts and changes the world is what it's about at this moment in that journey along that information, idea, receive, recommend. So I would love to see that part of the challenge is to help promote what's happening, to get the word out, to create everyone involved with the challenge, and even the people who are making the jewelry, you know, to have a commitment to talk about it, share it on however small or large your platform is. And so those big players who did participate this time, and the bigger ones and more big players that we want to participate next time, participate also in disseminating the information on their platforms to their audiences.
And finally, the last two, please. Celine?
Yes, so can you hear me? So I might be less romantic, and I might be more like a CSR nerd. So I would like to see coming some impact measurements coming with the Fairmined certification. For example, in the fashion sector that is a bit more advanced than the jewelry one, you've got Chloe that has got an amazing initiative with the SPNL. It's the social P&L account. So if we could have a way of materializing the social impact that is coming with Fairmined, I think that it would make more sense to the consumer, and it could give more value to the Fairmined product. Then I would like, in my dream, if it was coming with life cycle analysis, I would love it. I don't know how we can pay for that, but sometimes small mines are less impactful in terms of environmental damage than big one, and it's not known by everyone. So if we can make it tangible, I think it would be great. Then when you say Fairmined, you talk about mining with fairness. So it brings to some of the big stuff that need to be tackled. What do we do with the stone? So color gemstone, it would be awesome if I could see some color gemstone. And of course, like everyone, I would like to see more of the big names, and I would like to see the new names that I didn't know being there next time, because I would like them not to have made a one-off, but that they've got commitment and continuity in their creativity.
Well, your enthusiasm is wonderful. There's one person who has yet to respond, so may I coax you to do so?
Absolutely. Well, I think you all obviously have really valuable points, and I definitely think there is a requirement from the big brands, but I also do think, as you say, Elle, if we can all help get this out in all our different platforms, and in that way, let's say have an ambition about tripling the amount of participants for next year, being a part of it, all of us, and also in that way making sure that the big brands has to do that, it has to go this way as well, because if we start walking the talk, and then the consumers will be aware, and the big brands will be forced to, they can't avoid it. So I think again, small steps can do a lot of impact, and if all of us, we do have a responsibility about really getting it out there. So let's have a common goal of tripling the participants for next time.
Well, I think you've set the bar high for what we would like to see in addition to ranging from big brands to measurement to collective action in terms of informing people about the initiative. And so now it's my job to say thank you so very much to all the judges for their time, attention, and care in this initiative. It is not an easy thing, although it can be quite joyful to go through lots and lots of objects and to make determinations, bringing in many different factors. And so it's really a pleasure to say thank you on behalf of Fairmined, as well as myself, and also to comment how wonderful it is that we have, if you will, judges that are all female leading the way. So thank you very much, everybody. And we're now going to turn to announcing the winners in each category. So thank you so much. So we're now going to move on to the categories and the best collections from the Fairmined 100 Challenge. So the way this will work is that we will show the leading entries, those that stood out the most in each category, followed by the winning entry. So in the solid gold collection, meaning that made entirely from Fairmined gold, the collections are Adoro Mi Oro, Salome, AM Thorn Heritage Pure 22 Karat Collection, Futura, Forever Futura, Carol Chiotasso, Montjoie, Victory Jewelry, the California Collection. And I hope that means I got them all. Oh, excuse me, and Gem Collection Étreinte Chapitre 3. And the winner is Adoro Mioro Salome. And there you have a lovely shot before you. In the silver category, which will be the best collection made using Fairmined silver, I'm going to introduce the outstanding collections. So mineral aura silver, mineral random polygons, so these refer to collections, Cosmos circle jewelry, antique croix, Christine Duane, cross the T's and dot the I's, Brunegold Lee, and I believe that is it. And the winners, because there is a tie, are mineral random polygons and Christine Duane, cross the T's and dot the I's. And images of each of these collections is on the screen now. Congratulations to you both. We will now move into the best gold-plated collection, which is the best collection made using certified Fairmined gold plating. And the outstanding collections are Alex Monroe, Humble Beginnings, Deve, Edition 1, Rite Moderne, Chapter 1, Deve, Edition 1, Rite Moderne, Chapter 2, Alex Monroe, Fables, Manon Jewelry, Retrouvailles, and April Doubleday, The Coast. And the winner is Alex Monroe Fables, which you see before you right now. The fourth category is the Diamonds collection. And this is designation for the best collection made with Fairmined metals and diamonds. And the outstanding collections are Gem, Collection Étreinte, Chapitre 3, Wake, Wake by Fairmined, Drop 3, Ether Diamonds, Bombay, Wake, Wake by Fairmined, Drop 2, Mazzari, Origins, and Wake, Drop 1. And the winner is Ether Diamonds, Bombay, which is on the screen in front of you now. So congratulations to Ether. The next category is colored gemstones. And this will honor the best collection made with Fairmined metals and colored gemstones. So I'm going to introduce the outstanding collections. Coralie Brazes amulets, Dana Bronfman integration, Nathalie Mathulin precious earth, Vanessa Fernandez studio, Curva, Wake, Wake by Fairmined, Drop 3, and Alex Monroe, Humble Beginnings. And the winner is Dana Bronfman, Integration. Congratulations, well done. The next category is for groundbreaking innovation, the collection that differentiates itself from the rest by the use of a unique craft, technology, or concept. And the outstanding collections are Seaside Nature, or Nature, forgive me if I've inflected incorrectly, Wake, Drop 1, Ana Luca, Fragments, Sandrine Diodati, Mind Bubbles, Gem, Collection Étreinte, Chapitre 3, and Ether Diamonds, Bombay. And I'm delighted to say that there was a tie in this category as well between Wake, Drop 1, and Gem, Collection Étreinte, Chapitre 3. Both of these are on the screen at the moment. And finally, amongst those selected by the judges is the sustainability story. Collection among what is defined as the top tier brands. And here, what is meant by that is brands that produce a collection of 5 or more pieces, or a brand that had submitted multiple collections. And in those larger offerings, to strongly focus on making a positive impact and to have a narrative that accompanies it, that conveys that. And the top choices: Ether Diamond Bombay, Mizrahi Origins, Alex Monroe Fables, Greenwich Street Jewelers Toi et Moi, and Futura Legends. And the winner is Mazari Origins. And that's on the screen now in front of you. And finally, we turn to the public's favorite collection. So this category provided the opportunity to the public to choose their favorite collection. The Fairmined 100 digital catalog was open for voting from September 16th to October 7th. An extraordinary number of people voted, and this in the goal of choosing the winner and outstanding categories. So in fact, 3 are called out, a winner, and then a second and third. The winner is Lakdawala, the minimalist collection, with 891 votes. Second place for Sandrine Diodati, Mind Bubbles. And third place for the jewelry edit, Lend Me Your Ears. So thank you everyone who cast your votes for this particular category. And last but not least, we'd like to recognize the brands that submitted more than one collection. Bitomska Jewelry and Alex Monroe submitted 4 collections each. Mercurius Jewelry, Mineral, and Wake submitted 3 collections each. And finally, Fucine Romaine and Malleable Jewelry, who created the largest collections. Congratulations to all the winners. Thanks to our judges and to all for joining. And finally, we close with a Fairmined 100 challenge video. We hope you enjoy watching, and we look forward to round 2. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One year after jewelry brands were challenged to learn about the impact of Fairmined gold and choose to use Fairmined precious metals, 127 collections were brought together in the Fairmined 100 Challenge. 97 jewelry brands from 16 countries came together to support a transparent Fairmined supply chain. Brands of all sizes accepted our invitation to use Fairmined responsibly sourced metals. They made gold and silver certified creations sharing the same goal, telling the world that making responsible jewelry with a social impact is possible. These collections using Fairmined gold contribute to a new reality for small-scale mining, each piece representing happiness, love, commitment, family, and culture also generates a positive impact somewhere else in the world, supporting a chain where community, empowerment, good mining practices, and environmental preservation become part of a story behind every piece of jewelry. This challenge has demonstrated that making a positive impact on mining communities is possible for all brands, and that using responsible gold in their production chains is a real possibility. Together, we build a better future.